In this lecture, I describe environmental health, which encompasses the health of the environment itself, how much it's polluted or contaminated, and also the health of the populations of organisms that are supported by the environment, including human populations and some diseases that relate to environmental contamination, as well as animal populations too. And then lastly, we'll go into certain and specific environmental toxins, their effects, and some of the causes of mutations and cancers that relate to these toxins. A general definition of health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of physical disease or illness. There could be more things added to that definition as well, but that's our basic definition for this lecture in talking about environmental health. A disease is an abnormal change in the body's condition that impairs important physical or psychological functions. Environmental health focuses on environmental factors that cause disease and disorder in humans and in other non-human organisms as well. One metric that well represents the environmental health is childhood survival or childhood mortality. You can see here from these maps that the infant or child mortality rate has drastically decreased across the globe in the last 125 or so years, especially in North America and Europe and Russia as well. But it's dropped all over the world and much lower rates due to a lot of health care and things like that. But why is childhood survival or mortality rate a good indicator of environmental health? Well, it has a lot to do with access for people to clean water, air, good food, medicines, and the availability of those things has increased drastically in the last 100 or so years. However, child mortality rates have dropped throughout the world, but they're not the same everywhere and for every different ethnic group. Here we're looking at the inequities of child mortality by race and ethnicity, and just in the United States, and we see it's much higher for American Indians, Alaskan Natives, and than it is for whites, or Hispanics is much higher, same with blacks, as it is for Asians or whites. So that directly reflects classism and the privilege that comes with the general wealth from white and sometimes Asian cultures is that there's more access to healthy water, healthy foods, living in healthy, uncontaminated environments, and access to health care. What's a definition of a pathogen? It's any organism or agent that can produce disease. So a pathogen may be also referred to as an infectious agent or a germ, but they are living things, except in the case of viruses and prions, which are considered not living, but they are something that reproduces and transmits diseases. So those also be contained in the pathogen category. Chronic diseases are ones that are persistent and otherwise long-lasting in their effects, or a disease that comes on slowly over time. That phrase, chronic, is applied when the course of the disease lasts for more than 3 months. So you can get something, and then if it lasts, like you could get a cold or a sinus infection, and if it lasts longer, it turns into bronchitis or sinusitis, which is more of a chronic disease. It starts out not chronic and becomes chronic. Some examples are heart disease, stroke, cancer, obesity, arthritis. These are accumulative diseases that progress. An emergent disease is something that may have been around in the background, but it's a new type of disease. It's newly recognized in a population. Or it could have existed, but it rapidly increases in incidence or range. So COVID-19 was an emergent disease that came from the animal kingdom, but it got into the human kingdom or the human population and expanded rapidly. That was definitely a good example of an emergent disease. Malaria is a great example of a disease in humanity that has an interesting history. It's been greatly reduced in its um, infection rates throughout the world. For the most part, eradicated in North America. You can see from the map that historically the distribution of malaria was fairly widespread in the Midwest, South and East coast until about 1900, and slowly it kind of got eradicated moving southward. There are some new cases that have been popping up in the United States, which is bringing some more discussion to that. And possibly if there could be a vaccination is what's being talked about right now in 2024. But you can still see that there are still plenty of deaths to malaria, more in developing and also equatorial countries where it's moist and tropical. There's a lot of standing water where the larvae breed, and maybe less access to housing that can have netting or screens and prevent the mosquitoes from passing on that disease by biting people at night. The Ebola outbreak, that particular disease that got into the human population in West Africa in 2014, was a scary one at the time as far as diseases go, because it got into the human population. It was likely a virus that was normal in a wild chimp, and those chimpanzees or monkeys, those populations, they had it, but it didn't affect them. But once it got transferred into humans, probably from humans eating the meat, it's called bush meat of wild animals, then it got into humans and it mutated into this form that caused a real disease in humans and spread very quickly. The Ebola virus also got into the gorilla population in West Africa, and about a third of the gorilla population has been killed to date by the Ebola virus, and that was partly its outbreak from chimpanzees and or monkeys and getting into other populations, gorillas and humans. White nose syndrome is a disease caused by a fungus that got into the bat population a couple of decades ago and has caused the death of millions of bats in eastern North America. Amphibians are being affected by a disease called the chytrid disease, and that is a fungal disease that affects many amphibians, especially because the dispersal of the fungal spores occurs in water where amphibians live at least a big chunk of their life. This is an example of a disease that is related to environmental health too, because as the amphibian's habitat is compromised through water contamination, sedimentation, also habitat fragmentation and habitat loss, the amphibians populations, which are already a sensitive organism because they take in so much through their skin, they are even at greater risk now due to this disease, which has spread pretty widely. What about diseases and climate change? Climate change is helping the expansion of lots of parasites and diseases, because areas that usually had a colder season and a lot of parasites like ticks, mosquitoes, fleas would die off during the snowy or frozen cold season. Now some of those areas are getting warmer and they don't have a dormant season as much anymore. So these tropical diseases proliferate in the warm, moist climates and are finding new areas to expand into. And analogous to super weeds are super bugs. These are pathogens, bacteria, fungi, otherwise, as you know what a pathogen is now, other microscopic organisms, but they're resistant to the standard antibiotics used to treat infections because we've used so many of them. It in a sense has selected for resistant strains of those pathogens, and now we've developed these bugs that do not respond to our antibiotics, and we don't have anything else we know to be able to fight them.